which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mr. Alt?
Here.
Mr. Beistel?
Here.
Mr. Calero?
Here.
Mrs. Love?
Here.
Mr. Polakowski? Mrs. Rhodes?
Here.
Mrs. Shipley?
Here.
Mr. Benz?
Here, 7 present and 1 absent, I believe. Did Mr. Polakowski say he was on vacation?
I believe Mr. Polakowski's out of town.
Citizens' comments?
We have no comment cards this evening.
Thank you. Resolution, incidental motion to approve method of voting. I'll pass that to the solicitor, is that?
Yes, Mr. Patonic, please.
What I tried to do here was to develop a orderly procedure in which to conduct the appointment of the applicant to the vacancy on the board. In the past, sometimes there was an election, sometimes there was just a motion and a second, and rather than the superintendent or the president or I deciding that in advance, and after consulting with a senior solicitor, I came up with this procedure that you would vote to either do option 1, and that would be after the secretary announces the names of the persons who have submitted their paperwork and hearing the presentations of the applicants. Option 1 would be that the president would open it up for nominations from school board members. And school board members would have an opportunity, would not require a second. The first time I attempted this, I was thinking that it should or would require a second, and I think that that's not appropriate or necessary, and I think it's unduly constraining the more I thought about it. And so you would make nominations, and then when nominations were stopped, nobody was making any more, entertain a motion to close nominations, have a voice vote on that, and then go to the actual nominations in which, to go then to the actual election. And on the procedural guidelines here, I already have it set up under option 1. Under number 5, you would make your nominations and then actually vote. And you would vote for whomever you chose. If someone did not get 5 votes, and that's school code statutory, unlike an election of a school board officer, regardless of how many are here, it has to be 5 in the affirmative. If you did not get 5, then the president would open it up again and ask you again to make nominations. It might be that you decided to make them all the same again, or maybe not. This way, it's left in your hands to make those kinds of decisions and go through that process again. And you would continue doing that until either someone made a motion to recess, if you needed to use the facilities or what have you, or talk to other members, as long as not more than 4 of you talk at a time. You could do that. And then come back and either continue the process, or if you felt that you were deadlocked, then you can make a motion and have a second to declare the deadlock, but that would still take 5 votes. So you're either going to keep voting to elect, or you're going to ultimately vote to be deadlocked. Now, if you deadlock, it's going to require 10 interested taxpayers to file a petition in common pleas court. And I've double-checked on this, and President Judge's procedure from the past is still going to be the same. It would ultimately go to the court en banc for all of the judges to make a decision, not just an individual motions court judge. Be advertised again. People could go and make their presentations again, and we might get stuck for the advertising fees for that. I'm not sure if that happened in the past, but it's a possibility. On the other hand, if you choose option 2, then it's just a race for whoever gets recognized first to make a motion and have a second and vote on somebody. If that person gets 5 votes, we're done. If they don't, then you have to entertain a motion to go to someone else in sequence. I had recommended the first method because I think it's the more orderly and doesn't give anybody any undue advantage and gives everybody who has applied at least the initial opportunity to be nominated. Doesn't mean they have to be. If somebody, if you decide not to nominate someone, the advantage of option number one is that the applicants aren't forcing themselves on you, and you aren't prematurely closing them off. And I think that's, after discussing this with another attorney, I think it's really the fairer way to do it. But it's still up to you to decide that. So if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them, but I would think that adopting the motion would provide for a more orderly procedure and might become a model for the future if you ever had to do this again.
Any questions or comments? No questions or comments? Do we have a motion for option one or option two? You can include that in your motion.
I do have one question, David.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's right. When the nominations are made, assuming there are multiple nominations, the order of voting, how will you decide which one? The first one nominated will be the first one we vote on, the second one nominated will be the second one we vote on, alphabetically?
No. If you make nominations, then you go around the table taking turns with board members
Okay, board
asking
members
how
will
you
do
want to
that.
vote.
Okay, thank you.
And then keep staggering it as you normally do.
Thank you. Okay.
So it'd be more like the regular
Vote.
procedure.
Thank you.
Any more questions from anyone? Do we have a motion including which option you want to make the motion on?
I make a motion that we select option one.
I second that motion.
Option one, motion by Mrs. Rhodes, second by Mr. Calero. Any questions on that motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel? Mr. Calero?
Yes.
Mrs. Love? Yes. Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mrs. Shipley?
Yes.
Mr. Benz?
Yes. Motion passes 7 and 1 absent.
Okay, now we'll go to this sheet. Have Mrs. Carson announce what the situation is with applicants.
So we'll move on to procedural guideline for appointment of school board to the vacant position.
Mrs. Carson, would you announce the people who have submitted paperwork?
Mr. Ryan O'Rear? All the names?
Yeah.
Dr. Catherine Fike, Mr. Charles Fry, and Mr. Ray Ban.
And was there initially an application for Mr. Verotsko?
Paul Verotsko, yes.
And what happened?
He declared to me that he was dropping out. Please withdraw his name.
And that was that by telephone?
By telephone, yes.
Okay. Did you initiate the call to him or?
Yes, I did.
All right, so now you would call upon the remaining 4 individuals, Ryan O'Rear, Catherine Fike, Charles Fry, and Mr. Raymond Van. What was the order in which the applications were originally received? Do you know that?
Mr. Ryan O'Rear, Dr. Catherine Fike, Mr. Charles Fry, and Mr. Raymond Ban.
So you would entertain the applicants if they wish to make presentations in that order, Mr. President.
So Ryan O'Rear, you have 5 minutes to address the board.
Good evening. My name is Ryan O'Rear. I live at 411 Parker Avenue here in Scottsdale. The reason I'm going is because I have 2 daughters that are in this school district, and I want to make sure that they have the proper education, they have a chance, and I want a hand in that. So I'd like the chance to represent not only the kids of this school district in this county, but as well as my own. And if you give me that, I'll guarantee that with my learning and integrity, I'll make sure that the right things get done. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Catherine Fike.
Good evening. I have provided each of you in advance a hard copy of my credentials regarding the appointment to be made tonight. My qualifications are clearly documented, and additionally, I have 8 years' experience as a school director in 2 districts. Although this appointment is for a very limited period of time, it presents a valuable opportunity to work for the benefit of our students in a very important area, curriculum and instruction. The serious academic deficiencies in our high school over a 4-year period are well documented, and there is no need to discuss them. However, with current personnel changes, we have a golden opportunity to turn things around to achieve secondary student success once again. Using 4 months, I have a specific plan to do this, working with the curriculum chairman of the school board. A special education component and community committee should be convened to design and implement curriculum and instructional revisions and strategies that will take our children back to the successful achievements of the past. This committee should consist of invited volunteers from the Westmoreland County Community College, particularly their remedial program, VOTEC academic faculty, local university branches, the Tri-State Study Council at the University of Pittsburgh, and I believe you still belong. And they provide specialists in curriculum and instruction. Select teachers, your team leaders from Southmoreland, parents of present and past students, graduated students from the district in a variety of fields, and most importantly, retired teachers from a range of disciplines. I cannot stress how important those people are. Prior to the implementation of the community learning program, Southmoreland had high academic success. Since the community learning program was put in place, the failure began. This is a diamond hour to change this, and the responsibility to do so rests with the board. I was told that the guidance department has done follow-up studies of our graduates, and this information would provide critical data regarding student needs for future success. Test scores need to be analyzed and compared to present curriculum and instruction to see where alignment does and does not occur. Technology was designed to supplement, not replace instruction. Not one iota of student learning occurs if teachers are spending their time in meetings instead of being with their students and teaching them. In the past, the board has been provided with very extensive multi-page improvement plans, which were clearly unsuccessful. A new approach, led by the board, is our only chance to provide our students with an educational program that will lead them to a successful and fulfilling future. Politics, personal animosity, or any other social factors need to be put aside. The board must be united in its devotion to our children and its commitment to provide for them an education of the highest quality with the potential for future success. I hope that I'm wrong, but I'm not aware of any Southmoreland personnel who are specifically certified in curriculum and instruction. However, if there are, please use them to the maximum capacity to institute a successful academic program that is based on proven strategies and practices, not the latest fads and crazes. As a board, you can change things to restore our past glory. Make the right appointment, focus on our children. You can do this if you choose. Thank you.
Mr. Charles Fry?
Good evening. My name is Charles Fry. I too think that the most important thing with our school board is our children, our education, and their further education. Our children both graduated from Southmoreland, as well as my wife and myself, and they both, my wife also went on to further education. Our children both graduated from California University. And my oldest daughter, she's married with 2 children, so we're blessed with 2 great-grandchildren. Her husband's Ryan Kramer. He also was educated through and is an engineer and works for Penn Line. Just to tell you that we're just blessed to have God in our lives, and without that, we wouldn't be where we are today. We ran a business here in the township, my wife and myself, and we operate Worries Provision. We own and operate Worries Provision, which has been a family business and still is to this day. Just a little bit about us. We try to help the fire departments, East Huntington Fire Department, Scottsdale Fire Department, whenever we're needed to do anything for them. If it becomes something that they need for the fair or anything like that. And we initiated the goal against pornography over there when that gentleman was trying to get that in over there by the Dairy Queen, and worked out pretty well for us that didn't start. And we've been in different organizations, and our church has chose us to be care elders, in which we help wherever we're needed there. And we've been involved with the National Wild Turkey Federation, and of course we're on the board at Brown Cemetery. But I would just like to say I feel honored to just be standing here giving my resume for you to consider me for the position on the school board. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Ray Ban, I believe, is out of town. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So that's the candidates' time to have spoken. So the president hereby invites the school board members to place into nomination the names of qualified applicants to be appointed to the vacancy on the Board of School Directors created by the resignation of Levi Miller for an appointee to serve until the first Monday of December after the November 2015 municipal election. No second is required. Do we have any nominations?
I nominate Mr. Charles Fry.
Mrs. Rhodes nominates Mr. Fry. Any more nominations? Mr. Alt?
I think our main responsibility and priority is to appoint the most qualified person, and I would like to nominate Dr. Fike.
Mr. Alt nominates Dr. Fike. Any more nominations? Do we have a motion to close nominations?
So moved.
Just a second, I'll write down. Motion by Mrs. Rhodes, second by
So be it.
Mr. Beistel. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 7-0, one absent. So voting for the appointment, Ms. Tarzan, could you do a roll call, I guess it would be called?
Mr. Alt votes for.
Dr. Fike.
Mr. Beistel votes for.
Mr. Fry.
Mr. Calero votes for.
Mr. Fry.
Mrs. Love votes for.
Mr. Fry?
Mrs. Rhodes votes for.
Mr. Fry?
Mrs. Shipley votes for.
Mr. Fry?
Mr. Bentz votes for.
Mr. Fry. So the final tally would be 6 for Mr. Fry, 1 for Dr. Fike, and 1 board member absent. So move down to Mr. Fry receives the appointment. I guess is that the term appointment?
He's elected as a member of the school board, would have to take the oath of office. I don't know that we have a judicial officer present tonight, do we?
Think you do that?
No. It has to be, he would have to go to the magistrate or a judge, because this isn't like the reorganization meeting, which has a specific exception for that.
Very well.
So, Mr. Fry, you would need to visit the magistrate's office and swear in the oath and receive a paper for that, and then present it to the school board and be eligible for the next meeting.
So move on to new business.
Do you need this resolution, David, that you have here? No, that's all.
No, we're not doing that.
Okay.
So new business, appointment of new board member, so we already did that. Swearing of new board member, skip that. Memorandum of agreement with Southwestern Pennsylvania Human Services.
It is recommended that the board enter into a memorandum of agreement with Southwestern Pennsylvania Human Services to continue to provide mental and behavioral health services within the schools at no additional cost to the district.
Need a motion, please? Motion by Mr. Beistel, second. Second by Mr. Calero. Questions on the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Beistel? Mr. Calero?
Yes.
Mrs. Love?
Yep.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mrs. Shipley?
Yes.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Bentz?
Yes, 7 approve and 1 absent. Do we adjourn to personnel?
We have recess.
Recess to personnel. Do we have a motion, please? Motion by Mr. Calero, second. Second by Mr. Beistel. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 7-0, 1 absent. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 7-0, 1 absent. Personnel, hiring of an elementary teacher / guidance counselor.
It's recommended that the board approve Sarah Kiliani at step B1 for the position of elementary teacher / guidance counselor, salary as per the agreement between the Southmoreland School District and the Southmoreland Education Association, and this again would be pending favorable Act 168 responses.
Need a motion, please?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Shipley, second. Second by Mr. Beistel. Questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Calero?
Yes.
Mrs. Love?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mrs. Shipley?
Yes.
Mr. Alt?
No.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mr. Bentz?
Yes, motion passes 6-1 with 1 absent.
I have one walk-on, Mr. President. It's recommended that the board accept with regret the resignation of Mrs. Marge Henry as a Southmoreland custodian for the purpose of retirement, and this will be effective August 30th, 2015.
2015. Need a motion, please?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Rhodes, second. Second by Mr. Calero. Questions? Questions from the audience, it's not an agenda item. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Love?
With regrets, yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mrs. Shipley?
Yes.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mr. Calero?
Yes.
Mr. Benz?
Yes, motion passes 7 to 1 absent. Any board members have anything? Any citizens' comments? Need a motion to adjourn? Motion by Mrs. Rhodes, I heard a second, but I couldn't tell who it was. Mr. Beistel, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Thank you, good night. Just as a reminder, the August meetings were changed to the second and third Thursdays. So didn't want you coming next week and